The Honourable Member Eugenie Sage. Tēnā Ms Sage.
Tēnā Mr Speaker, thank you. I'm pleased to take a call on the Arts Centre of Christchurch Trust Bill, which the Green Party will be supporting, and like other members acknowledge the Honourable Nicky Wagner for bringing the bill to the House and the hard-working and committed members of the Trust Board. I was privileged to have an office in the old chemistry building on Hereford Street through the 1990s and early 2000s. And it's indeed a privilege to work in a building that has got such a history of craftsmanship and has been used and enjoyed by so many people over the decades. The stone steps as you enter the old chemistry building have a depression in them, and each time I walked up I wondered at how many thousands of student feet had passed that way before. And it's a craftsmanship in the buildings which we don't find in many buildings today in terms of the ornamental stonework, the architecture, and that's why, and because the buildings were constructed by some of Canterbury's early significant and leading architects like Benjamin Mountfort and Samuel Hurst Seeger, and the whole complex itself, that's one of the reasons why it is one of the most significant clusters of heritage buildings in New Zealand. And they're not just nationally important, they are internationally important. The New Zealand Historic Places Trust, Pueri Taonga, has recognised the Arts Centre campus as a building with special or outstanding historical or cultural heritage significance and value. And it was really disappointing that in the series of earthquakes, despite the work that the Trust had put into earthquake strengthening prior to the quakes, there was significant damage to all but one of the 23 buildings on the campus. But, Mr Speaker, whenever you walk down Worcester Boulevard or Hereford Street, and you see the very steady and thoughtful progress of the restoration work that is being done, it's very encouraging, particularly because it's being done in a careful way, the work's being phased, and it is a significant and very large project, one of the largest in the world, I understand, given the complexity of it. So it's a very marked contrast between the thoughtful work that is happening to the Arts Centre and the desolation we have in the rest of the central city because of Sarah's very aggressive demolition strategy in relation to heritage buildings, which has seen the destruction of over 230 buildings with heritage listing. And it's really disappointing that the same care which is being put into the Arts Centre couldn't have been exercised by Sarah in terms of its decisions on whether buildings should stay or go. The buildings are significant not just for their craftsmanship and their architecture, but also their history. The University of Canterbury was founded in 1873. It moved onto the site in 1876. And the buildings were there to accommodate the university and two of the city's major secondary schools, Christchurch Boys High and Girls High. And when the university celebrated its centennial in 1973, it got the government's permission to preserve the buildings and to sell off some of the ones at the western end of the complex. And that has been the basis of the buildings growing to form a very special place in the hearts of many Christchurch citizens. So we are very pleased to support the bill because it updates and modernises the governance arrangements for the Trust, and it consolidates the Trust's administration. It includes provisions which will provide for the appointment of a skills-based board, and it provides a much more secure future for the Arts Centre because of the provisions which mean that in the event that the Trust Board had to be wound up, the Crown would have to establish a new entity with objects as close as possible to the objects in this bill. And at the present time, if the board was having to be wound up, then it could use the assets that the Arts Centre represents for any educational or charitable purpose. So it's a much more secure future with this change. Another of the improvements in terms of the governance arrangements is that the board will have to hold an annual public meeting because Christchurch citizens are concerned about the future of the Arts Centre. It was very controversial in 2009 with the University of Canterbury's proposal to establish a new school of music on the site. Thank you, Mr.
call
Speaker.
the Honourable Member Tracy Martin.
Kia ora, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First as the Arts and Culture spokesperson.